Next, the globe addresses that thoughtful traveler, now growing accustomed to his reflective journey. Why are you wandering through the heavens, through space and sky? Come, I will make known to you what you are seeking. Look at the functions that I perform, and read my pages. He looks and sees that the globe, like an ecstatic Mevlevi dervish with its twofold motion, is tracing out around the field of the supreme gathering a circle that determines the succession of days, years, and seasons. It is a most magnificent dominical ship, loaded with the hundreds of thousands of different forms of food and equipment needed for all animate beings, floating with the utmost equilibrium in the ocean of space, encircling the sun. He then looks at the pages of the earth and sees that each page of each of its chapters proclaims the sustainer of the earth in thousands of verses. Being unable to read the whole of it, he looks at the page dealing with the creation and deployment of animate beings in the spring and observes the following. The forms of the countless members of hundreds of thousands of species emerge in the utmost precision from a simple material and are then nurtured in the most merciful fashion. Then, in miraculous manner, wings are given to some of the seeds. They take to flight and are thus dispersed. They are most effectively distributed, most carefully fed and nurtured. Countless tasty and delicious forms of food, in the most merciful and tender fashion, are brought forth from dry clay and from roots, seeds, and drops of liquid that differ little among each other. Every spring, 100,000 kinds of food and equipment are loaded on it from an unseen treasury, as if onto a railway wagon, and are dispatched in utmost orderliness to animate beings. The sending to infants of canned milk in those food packages, and pumps of sugared milk in the form of their mothers' affectionate breasts, is in particular such an instance of solicitousness, mercy, and wisdom, that it immediately establishes itself as a most tender manifestation of the mercy and generosity of the merciful and compassionate one. In short, this living page of spring displays 100,000 examples and samples of the supreme gathering, and is a tangible demonstration of this verse. So, look to the signs of God's mercy, how he gives life to the earth after its death. For verily, he it is who gives life to the dead, and he has power over all things. Moreover, this verse may be said to express in miraculous fashion the meanings of the page that is spring. The traveler thus understood that the earth proclaims through all its pages, in fashion proportionate to their size, there is no God but he. In expression of the meaning beheld by the traveler through the brief testimony of one of the 20 aspects of a single page out of more than 20 pages of the globe, it was said in the third degree of the first station, there is no God but God, the necessary being, to whose necessary existence in unity the earth with all that is in it and upon it testifies, through the testimony of the sublimity of the comprehensiveness of the truth of subjugation, disposition, nurturing, opening, distribution of seeds, protection, administration, the giving of life to all animate beings, compassion and mercy universal and general, a truth vast and perfect, and to be observed. Then that reflective traveler read each page of the cosmos. And as he did so, his faith, the key to felicity, strengthened. His gnosis, that key to spiritual progress, increased. His belief in God, the source and foundation of all perfection, developed 1 degree more. His joy and pleasure augmented and aroused his eagerness. And while listening to the perfect and convincing lessons given by the sky, by space, and the earth, he cried out for more. Then he heard the rapturous invocation of God made by the tumult of the seas and the great rivers, and listened to their sad yet pleasant sounds. In numerous ways they were saying to him, "Look at us. Read also our signs." Looking, our traveler saw the following. The seas, constantly and vitally surging, merging and pouring forth with an inclination to conquest inherent in their very nature, surrounded the earth, and together with the earth revolved extremely swiftly in a circle of 25,000 years in a single year. Yet the seas did not disperse, did not overflow or encroach on the land contiguous to them. They moved and stood still, and were protected by the command and power of a most powerful and magnificent being. Then looking to the depths of the sea, the traveler saw that apart from the most beautiful, well-adorned, and symmetrical jewels, there were thousands of different kinds of animals, sustained and ordered, brought to life, and caused to die, in so disciplined a fashion, their provision coming from mere sand and salt water, that it established irresistibly the existence of a powerful and glorious, a merciful and beauteous being, administering and giving life to them. The traveler then looks at the rivers and sees that the benefits inherent in them, the functions they perform, and their continual replenishment are inspired by such wisdom and mercy as indisputably to prove that all rivers, springs, streams, and great waterways flow forth from the treasury of mercy of the compassionate One, the Lord of glory and generosity. They are preserved and dispensed, indeed, in so extraordinary a fashion that it is said, 4 rivers flow forth from paradise. That is, they transcend by far apparent causes and flow forth instead from the treasury of a non-material paradise, from the superabundance of an unseen and inexhaustible source. For example, the blessed Nile, that turns the sandy land of Egypt into a paradise, flows from the mountains of the moon in the south, without ever being exhausted, as if it were a small sea. If the water that flowed down the river in 6 months were gathered together in the form of a mountain and then frozen, it would be larger than those mountains. But the place in the mountains where the water is lodged and stored is less than 1/6 of their mass. As for the water that replenishes the river, the rain that enters the reservoir of the river is very sparse in that torrid region, and is quickly swallowed up by the thirsty soil. Hence, it is incapable of maintaining the equilibrium of the river. A tradition has thus grown up that the blessed Nile springs in miraculous fashion from an unseen paradise. This tradition has profound meaning and expresses a beautiful truth. The traveler saw, then, 1,000th part of the truths and affirmations contained in the oceans and rivers. The seas proclaim unanimously with a power proportionate to their extent, "There is no God but He," and produce as witness to their testimony all the creatures that inhabit them. This our traveler perceived. Expressing and conveying the testimony of the seas and the rivers, we said in the 4th degree of the first station, "There is no God but God, the necessary existent, to the necessity of whose existence in unity point all the seas and the rivers, together with all they contain by the testimony of the sublimity of the comprehensiveness of the truth of subjugation, preservation, storing up, and administration, vast and well ordered, and to be observed.